Hey guys, this is Kris from 3B Outdoors Club, and you're listening to the Tracks and Tackle podcast, where nature is our playground.
Hey folks, we got a good Tracks and Tackle for you tonight. Kris turns the tables on me and does a little bit of an interview. We get to talking about random stuff, have a good roundtable conversation. This was a fun one. So grab a cup of coffee, tune in, let's roll. Hey, hunting family, welcome back to Tracks and Tackle. We got a good one for you here tonight. Kris and I are just going to sit down and we got a sort of a loose episode. We're going to tackle a couple of different subject matters and excited to get into the conversation, man. Been a while since we've seen you. How you doing, Kris?
Yeah, it's been a little bit. So far, so good, man. And I got a blanket on. I'm in my basement now, but it's still cold, even though it's in April right now. It's better. My wife is in Buffalo right now. She said it's 30 degrees up there and snowing.
It's still getting cold overnight. Probably till this episode airs, it'll be like full on spring weather. But yeah. It's still a little bit chilly at night, and then the days are getting a little bit warmer. It won't be long.
It's my fault because I got fishing stuff out the other day. I got all my fishing stuff out. So usually it's going to get cold if I get my stuff out. So
yeah, we were talking on the last episode where Brady and I were talking. We were at the trout stream getting into it, and I know we'll get into some of this conversation later, but just talking about growing up young, and sometimes that like the trout opener is just really, really cold, and as a young guy, like even hunting, but hunting, you expect it, like hunting deer, you expect it to be cold because hunting season's it's not in spring.
You're in that mindset.
Yeah, but this year, man, it was nice. It was like I was in a t-shirt. It was freaking great.
That's cool. Cool.
Well, why don't you lead us into this episode here, man? I'm going to sort of turn the microphone over to you and let you take us on a journey.
Yeah, so I'm taking over. This is the Kris takeover at Tracks and Tackle, and I'm gonna turn the tables on Ron. I got some questions for Ron here, so. First thing is, you guys just released your episode. I know this is going to come out later, but talk about your trout opener and how fun you guys had and the background of that.
Yeah. So I can definitely elaborate. Kris was sharing how, we all have different experiences growing up. And, certainly listening to the episode where Brady and I were actually recording from the stream. He was just saying like, man, that's foreign.
Yeah.
Foreign to me. For me, it's an experience like one day a year, kind of like the rifle opener here in Pennsylvania. That's a whole weekend experience, going into, even when rifle season started on Monday, our trip to the cabin and hanging out over the weekend, that all started Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's different with fishing for trout because it's one day.
Yeah.
But in Pennsylvania, you have to wait until 8 a.m. on the opening day.
That's so weird.
For your line to get wet. All right. And so that's great. But if you wait until 10 minutes till 8 to go to the creek, you're not going to find a spot to fish. Like guys get up and go out and find the fishing hole way early. And now I won't say what time we get there, but we get there early, dude.
Yeah.
If I said what time, then somebody's going to get out there before me.
Dark 30. It's dark 30.
It is like middle of the night, but it's cool because that's where we get to sit and tell stories and hang out and, eat donuts and drink sodas or, for many years, like when my mom was still with us, she would show up at like right at 8 o'clock or a little bit after 8 o'clock, but she would bring egg sandwiches for everybody. And, if it was cold, like a warm sandwich was really good. So like a couple of years ago, we lost my mom. She went home to glory. And so I just started taking my wife and I, we like to camp. So I was taking like the camping stove, the old Coleman camping stove,
Yes.
and hooking up a propane cylinder to it and cast iron skillet. And we're cooking up sausage and eggs because we have time. But I got to get up in the middle of the night to get to the hole. And that is probably like 90% of it.
Yes.
I'm exhausted by 10 a.m., 11 a.m. We'll fish until noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, this year, fishing was good, but it wasn't great. So, I came home, had a couple trout to clean up and, hung out on the tailgate, cleaned up these fish and I made some trout patties, kind of like salmon cakes, only with trout meat.
That's cool.
And, cooked them up and I ate the last of them yesterday. But, so yeah, it's kind of the tradition for us is get up in the middle of the night so that you can get there well before. And I know I'm elaborating probably more than what you want, but this is what happens when you ask me a question.
Yeah. The host is
nobody asks the host the question. Yeah. So, the other year, I went out there and I went out by myself, tried to get the hole for the whole family. And like 10 minutes after I showed up, you got headlights on you and somebody else is pulling in and you're thinking like, man, there's somebody else has got that passion. They got that fire in their bones. Like they're after it too. And so it's like a hat tip to those guys that get up that early and are that passionate about it. But it goes back to what we always say, man, doing it with a friend makes it so much easier. Yeah.
And again, we talked about this off air, but like, I didn't grow up with anything like that. And it's such a growing up in Maryland. I live in Pennsylvania now again, but that's such an above the Mason-Dixon line, and it's cool that you guys do that. It's cool that you have another tradition that's still carried on, that kind of stuff. I just get such a kick out of here. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah. There's not a lot of meat on a trout. They don't fight real hard.
Yeah.
But it's something about just getting out there, listening to the water run, spending time we do it with our family. Like it's a family thing.
Yeah. My buddy took his kids out to one of the local fish and game clubs, big pond where they stock them. And he sent me a picture of his boy with a nice little trout, I'm like, man, that's awesome. And if you look at the picture, he framed it up perfectly. Mm-hmm. There's no one in the background. I'm like, man, where are you? There's no one there. And he goes, check this out. And he just pans over a little bit and there's probably
70 people.
Yeah. The other part. But, it's such a cool thing. So actually, I'm going to tell a story too. When I was listening to Brady talk about how he got kind of lost thinking you know where you're at. And,
you can get turned around quick in the dark.
Well, in the dark. And, I've talked about it. We're fortunate enough to own some property. And we've been recently trying to duck hunt it a little bit as I'm getting into that. And there's a trout stream on it. And beavers got into it a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I've been going down this place since I was a kid. I knew where it was, but beavers had totally changed the landscape and the way the water flow that I overshot where we were supposed to go by about 100 yards. And I'm in the dark, like, where is this stuff? And
they
so
can change the landscape.
Yeah. And just thinking, okay, it's supposed to bend here, but now it's bending over here. And then I'm looking with my headlight. There's the water here. Here's this. Where's this tree that's bent over? Trees that were down that you used as landmarkers were underwater now. And so I felt Brady there. I know that feeling. And it was even more, I don't want to say embarrassing for me, but I had taken my buddy and my son and they're following me thinking I know where I'm going. And I'm like, hold on a second. I had to be that guy for a second. I don't know where we're at right now, but so, here's a big question, Ron, that we'll get into what are some of your other passions besides hunting and fishing?
All right, so we're opening up the book.
We're just opening it up.
That's
going to lead into my next question too. Okay, so think it through.
Okay, well, I mean, look, I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm definitely passionate about hunting and fishing, but I do a lot of like video editing. Like obviously we podcast. I'm kind of a techie guy. I'm dangerous when it comes to technology. Like I know enough to get into trouble, but I'm not a professional at it. I grew up in a family that loved sports, so I played sports growing up, played basketball, baseball, football, was always outside doing something that way, outside of, the hunting and fishing type of sports. But when I got married, things change whenever you get older. Certainly I remember, my brother and my sister are, 10 and 13 years older than me. So till they were having kids, I was only like 10 to 13 years older than their kids. And so we would have holidays like Thanksgiving or whatever, and all the nephews would be hanging out and want to play football. And so every year I was young enough that I would go out and we'd play football in the yard and horse around and that sort of stuff. And it got to the point where one year, like I would go out and play, but one year I came in, I sat down at the table and I was like, my heart was pumping. The old pump station was moving, my face was red and everybody's like, are you going to be all right? I'm like, man, I probably can't continue to do it like I used to do it.
Yeah.
And so like time catches up with you. When it comes to the things that I'm really passionate about, obviously I love creating content because it's not a strenuous physical activity. It's a mental activity. I love to build and structure, so I build operations for a living, efficient planning. How do we structure and framework for something to be successful, to be handed off? So I'm a process builder, and I'm a man of faith, right? So I love scripture. I love teaching the word. I'm a believer that like we're all taught a lot of stuff in church growing up, but if the Bible doesn't clearly like outline that, like you may have been taught something, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. So like I'm a proponent to like read what the word says and apply that versus what you were taught in Sunday school necessarily. It
says what it says.
Yeah. The Bible says there were a group of people called the Bereans, and the Bereans were taught, but then they went back and they studied the scriptures to see if what they were taught was true. And so, those are my kind of people.
Good.
That's so anyway, my passions, I love to create content. I love to manage. I'm a project manager type guy. And, I'm a man of faith, family, that sort of thing.
That sounds like a Mossy Oak commercial. So how do you mix up those with hunting and fishing? How do you combine all that?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, well, the family thing is the big part of it. We were the whole family, believes. We're all believers. So we, we're not hyper religious, but we will pray together. We will celebrate with one another. We work hard to like get a deer out of a valley or a gully. We'll do the hard stuff together. And so like doing it with family is really, really what's important to me. Successes and failures, etc. And so like I've turned that hunting with family, taking those photos. My older brother was really good at always, growing up in the 90s, like he would have like a camera where you would take a picture and you would have to take the film and go get it developed. And then you would take the picture and you would put it in an album. And then if you wanted to see the picture, you went back to the album. my brother was great at that. Like just if I killed a doe, he was like, all right, hold that thing up and let's get a picture of it.
Yes.
And so that kind of started me on this journey. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of a techie guy, so where my brother is not a smartphone guy because of our age difference.
Mm-hmm.
I came in and I remember one time I gave him my first smartphone. I shot a little 6-point and I'm like, take my picture with this. And, and he taps the screen and it took like 20 pictures.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm going to break it. He's like, don't ask me to use this thing. So we started posting those online and sharing our memories instead of putting them in the scrapbook. We started hit the mic with my pen. Instead of putting the pictures in the scrapbook, we started posting the pictures to like Instagram, and I started filming, deer passing through under my stand in archery, and started, just documentary type of videos, uploading those to YouTube. And it's really cool. We should do an episode sometime going back, watch it. Like I can throw the video up on the screen. We can watch the video and we can live commentary. I can get from you.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun, especially coming from somebody that you're not family, but us well enough, so that you'd get that third person perspective. So I took that hunting with my family and turn that into content creation. And so like, that's what I do now. I'm always trying to capture the moment. I'm always trying to put a video together and share the story. And I promise you, the first videos were horrible. I'm not saying that the last video I did was awesome, but certainly, you get better, faster, stronger the more you do something.
Yeah, good. Cool. Piggybacking off of some of that, we have talked about this before, but what's in your bag? What's your favorite? If you had one thing that you could take in the woods with you outside of your bow or whatever weapon you're going to use, or your tree stand, what's the one thing you're going to take with you? It doesn't have to be for content, just one thing that you're like, oh, this got to go with me.
Yeah. So if it's not, obviously you're taking a weapon because we're going to kill an animal. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not, you're trying to immerse yourself into the wild. So, obviously you have your phone with you, which a lot of times you're not paying attention to what's going on around you when you're looking at the phone.
Yeah.
It's a great question. For me, I usually, I think I brought this up before, it's my, I've got different hats, I've got different types of, hats for different, what I'm hunting. But I'm not a guy that has a lot of accessories, I'm not a guy that has like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of hunting and camo gear and stuff like that. One of the things that it's really important is you got to have a good pair of shoes. I mean, get down to the basics, right? You got to have a backpack that's going to haul. You got to have the bag, to haul what you got to put in there. But for me, it's just like getting in and getting out with ease.
Yeah.
And I probably carry too much stuff. So anything that's going to help me lighten the load of, what I'm packing in and packing out, that's the primary thing for me.
Cool. Here's $1 million question. This is going off track a little bit. It doesn't have to be hunting here. Okay. It could be.
All right.
You interpret this how you want. And I don't mean to exclude your wife when I say this, but if you could go on a trip anywhere and do anything, what would you do and why? Like,
all right.
I got a week. This is Ron time. I can go do this. My wife's going to a spa in Florida, and I got.
My issue is, Kris, I'm not in shape. Okay, like if I could hunt anywhere in the world, I really love the country that we're in. I love America because we got the best of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got the oceans, we got the deserts, we got the prairies, we got the mountains. You know, so I actually asked this question to a group of guys here recently, like dream hunt, where would you go if you could go as brothers? And they said, you know, elk hunting, but there were turkey hunters too. For me, I've not done like the elk hunt thing, and that's like a bucket list thing for me to do.
Yeah.
But if you were going to give me a once in a lifetime, Ron can do it, I'd want to take bighorn sheep.
That's cool. That's really
because it's like the rarity for me. It's how do we challenge yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so like there's a lot of guys that go out there and kill elk, but and there's a lot of guys that kill bighorn sheep too, but I mean it's more of it doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
And so if I had like one dream, I think that's what I'd love to do. Now I know my limits, and I don't know if I could hack it, but that's what in my heart I carry that.
That's cool. That's a cool thing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? If you had like that dream hunt,
You know, I don't know that I would go hunting. I think that I would do, you know, when I started 3B, I was a deer hunter, and that was what I did. Rabbit hunted, and I loved to rabbit hunt. I wasn't into duck hunting yet, but I was like the fishing guy. I
Right.
love fish. I would love, and this is, you know, it has nothing to do with Yellowstone or stuff like that. I would love to go to Montana and fly fish or stand in some of those streams and just fish all day. Alaska, and just take in the scenery and just fish. And not that I would not take an opportunity to hunt those, but if I could just go, I would love to go somewhere up there and just take in the scenery. You know, where we live, there's mountains. To see the mountains like that, to go out west and to see the mountains.
Yeah, they're real.
You know, see what's on the beer cans, as they say, right? You know, and that's what I would like to do. Stand in the water, catch some stuff, you know, really experience that and just take it in, you know. That would be cool for me.
I've done a little bit of traveling. I've been out into the Midwest and I guess, you know, Rocky Mountain area. And it's cool where it's 70 degrees down in town. And you drive for 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and there's snow on the ground because you just went up in elevation so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it is gorgeous. It is amazing.
That's cool.
But yeah, that would be awesome. And it's great. It's great fishing.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, you know, and maybe that's me being kind of meek because that's probably semi-affordable. You know, that's an achievable goal. I remember reading in a Calvin and Hobbes comic years ago that, you know, Calvin asked Hobbes, well, if you could have anything in the world, what would you want? He said, I want a sandwich. He said, why would you say that? He said, because I can go get a sandwich right now. My dream will come true, right? So, you know, maybe it's something like that I know could do. And, you know, I'd like to duck hunt. There's places down south, and I'd like to do that. But, you know, to go fish and just be in that, I think that would be really, really cool, you know.
No doubt. No doubt. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your recent trip?
Yeah, so we went out to, again, I grew up in Maryland, and people that aren't familiar with Maryland, it's kind of like what you just said about America. They call Maryland mini America. It's got everything, and you can be in the whole state in a day. There's mountains to the west, there's flatlands, there's marshes and swamps, there's the bay and rivers and streams, and then you have the beach. And we went out to as far west as you can go in Maryland. It's in Garrett County. People have heard of Deep Creek Lake. Past Deep Creek Lake is another state park called Harrington Manor. And they have these old logging cabins from the early 1900s that the actual loggers that went up and worked for the timber companies built and lived in while they worked up. And they've renovated them, and you can rent them for a really affordable price. It's on the state park website. They don't have TV. They have electric amenities. There's no TV, not good cell phone service. So you're not taking even, smart TVs or computers or tablets up there. You're not going to be able to do stuff. I mean, I could text a little bit, but you're going up there to disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
So we went up there for the weekend. My wife's family used to go up there in the wintertime and do cross country skiing through the trails up there. They're real into that, which is
Awesome.
funny because they're Italian, so it's like the most un-Italian thing for them, right? But that was their tradition. It was really cool, and we've kind of carried that on. And we go out there in the spring every year. And I took my boys fishing. There's a big lake up in the mountains. I sent you some pictures. I posted some pictures. Nothing like what we were just describing, but to be up, 3,000. I think it's 3,000 feet. It might be less than that. Maybe I'm totally mistaken. But you're up in the mountains on kind of a plateau, fishing in this big lake, and it's quiet. And it was just cool, man. It was just a cool experience with my sons and hiking trails and going through these mountain trails. And I'm not a big proponent for the government, even though I work for the government, but they did it right out there. There's really cool signs, really cool wildlife, biodiversity signs that you can stop and see. Really, really well done without taking away from the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. It was a really cool weekend. We cooked out and had hot dogs and
That's part of the experience, right?
Yeah. Disconnected from some things, but reconnected with other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. I love it. Some of our national parks and state parks, even, like you say, they do it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get out. I know that we're going to spend a lot of time out. My wife likes to camp and hunt, or not hunt, but to hike.
Mm-hmm.
And I hunt. She hikes. And so she likes to go hit these state parks that have hiking trails, because some of them don't want you to, take your dogs with you, but like we go to dog friendly parks and, get the dogs out and get some energy run off of them. And, we like to spend a lot of time doing that over the summer.
Cool.
As long as it doesn't get too hot,
Yeah.
And I want to cool down.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good time to go out where Regis was. It was cool, a little warmer than it is right now here. So we went in the last weekend of March, and it was just a fun time. And they have trails marked for easy access, a little bit more difficult. It is dog friendly. It's just cool, man. It's just a really fun time fishing with my sons. My daughters did go, but they're at the age where they do it for a couple minutes and they want to go play. And there was a playground right there by the lake where they were out there playing. And it was just a great time for everybody. And, and
as long as they're having fun.
Yeah. My wife got to relax. So it was cool, man. It was a good time, talking about fishing. I know we're going to wrap up here in a minute. What is your favorite? I'll say top 5. You can say whatever you want. What are your top 5 go-to fishing lures that you're going to go with? If you're going to recommend fishing lures or baits to somebody, what are you using?
I'm probably not the right guy because I don't fish like you fish, right? Okay. So I'm probably not going to give you the. I wouldn't be the guy that I'd go to for advice for that. Like, fish eat bugs, So for me, if you got a night crawler, like old school, simple, like I said, I'm a very simple guy, and night crawler will catch you fish. Depending on what you're fishing for, like we do a lot of where I live, we had a lot of big ponds and stuff that have bass in them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The best bait you can get is catch a little bluegill.
Yeah.
And catch the bass eat bluegill.
Yeah.
So when it comes to lures and stuff, there are a lot of there's top waters and, there's a lot of different types of jigs that you can set up, but I'm no expert on that. That's where, I'm asking for advice on.
Yeah. When we went out to Western Maryland and we're fishing, and my brother-in-law and his family went too, and he had bought a little thing of worms, but my boys were like, let's get some worms. Did you bring any, Dad? I said, we're in the woods, bro. Let's go find some, let's dig up some leaves and stuff. But no, you actually named 2 of mine. I have an artificial bluegill. I'm real fond of the company Rebel Lures. Rebel,
Mhm.
like, bad, the good guys in Star Wars, bad guys in the Civil War. I guess how you're going to look at that. But they have a bluegill that I like to use a lot. And you're not going to catch. I mean, you have the capability to catch monster fish on it, but you're going to catch fish with it. And then they also have a bug line, and they have a horsefly that just sits on the water, and you twitch it, and you'll smash
Yeah.
stuff. But no, I just like to hear different people's. That's two of my favorite. I like that old Daredevil spoon, the red and white. You can see
Yep.
on every. That's one of my favorites. And then you can't go wrong with what they call a beetle spoon jig, little thing that you put the worm on. It's got the little metal thing on it.
Yeah, anything that's gonna spin and get you a little bit of light,
Yeah.
that movement's gonna catch a little bit of light and draw attention to it. You can't go wrong.
I'm a sucker though. If I see something cool at Walmart or Ollie's or Best Pro, I'm gonna buy it. I have a bat. I have one of the walking bats that you drag across the water and it looks like it can't get up. I have some cicada ones. I got some big beetle ones. I have a couple mice. I got a baby duck that works pretty good. It depends on what you want to do. But nothing beats worms. Nothing beats corn.
Right.
Little sweet corn. I've caught catfish with dog food. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So like from like catfish, if you get some old chicken livers and let them sit out in the sun all day and bake and get that really stink on them, in the summertime, draws them in. Catfish can't resist it.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad I could pick your brain for a little bit. Switch
Yeah, no doubt. It's actually fun to get a couple questions thrown my direction because I'm usually trying to keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Do you remember? As we close real quick, do you remember? Yeah. I was big into this. There was a subscription box when subscription boxes started getting popular called Mystery Tackle Box.
Yes.
I got that. And what was crazy about it, and they didn't care. I guess they didn't care. Maybe they're not even in business anymore. But you could cancel it and then get another one for $5. So your first box was always $5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably had 30 of those. I would get it all the time. I'd keep it for a couple months. And Lee and I from 3B, I said, I'm going to do the bass box. He goes, well, I'm going to do catfish. And then we would trade stuff back and forth. But
that's like, it reminds me of like, now I'm going to date us a little bit, but the old Columbia House.
Oh my God.
Where you got the pick 10 CDs.
Yes. Spoiler alert. That's a good topic for this other podcast we're talking possibly starting, because I can go on some stories about that thing.
Jot it down, man.
Yeah, getting the old grew up similar to you, and there was a Christian version of that where you could get Christian, and I remember getting a bunch of that. In fact, side note, this had nothing to do with hunting or whatever like that, but I think it was 2002, maybe 2003. Music was my thing. It still is. If I could choose music or hunting, sorry, ducks, I'm listening to music. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of money as a kid on CDs and tapes and records.
Yep.
The Better Business Bureau filed a lawsuit against record companies and CD manufacturers to the point where they issued stimulus checks. What's that term? Like, you're entitled to like a settlement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a class action.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And I can send this article to you. But I had bought, Columbia House was one of the ones that did this, was they jacked up CD prices so high. I mean, for a little while in the late 90s and 2000s, CDs were like $25. Anyways, they sent me this thing. Hey, you got this. How many CDs you bought? And I think when I was a late teenager, early 20s, I think I had 5,000 CDs. I mean, that's what I did. I spent my money on those. I would go to local stores, pawn shops,
right,
CDs, whatever. So they said, okay, yeah, you bought this. What do you think it's worth? Well, they sent me a check for like $200 because of all this stuff. And then I bought more.
Yeah, you just spent it on more CDs.
Hey, do you do drugs? Here's money for stuff like that. What are you going to spend it on? Probably more drugs, right? I don't do drugs. That was a bad analogy, but like.
No, it's a great analogy. Like if you know, you know.
But yeah, Columbia House, man, he sent me on a thing with that. We'll pin note that for this other thing we're maybe talking about doing. But
yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Well, listen, it was great to just sort of get on here and rap with one another. I know we haven't done a whole lot of this, but probably as we go in through the summer, we'll have a couple more of these sessions where we get down and just sort of have some conversations. So appreciate you, Kris, hanging out with me here tonight. We'll probably call it a wrap here, but for any of you guys out there listening, always just give us a like and a follow, comment on our stuff. Let us know any topics you'd like us to talk about, because certainly we are interested in interacting with the audience. So any final words from you, bro?
Yeah, man. Enjoy the spring. Enjoy your time outside, guys.
All right. Get outdoors. Nature is our playground, and stay wild.
That's right.